All right. I am here with Alexander Nevsky, a World Film Geek Hall of Famer, and Nick Baillie, and we're talking about The Wide West. The movie just came out this past Sunday on Xumo Play. I enjoyed the heck out of this movie. Not only was it a great Western, it just the whole premise and the fact that it's once again based on a historical, U.S. historical thing like the Rio Bravo films. I had a great time watching this movie.
Thank you. Thank you, Albert. Hello, everyone. Hello, all the geeks out there. And Albert, again, I said it to you before the show, and I'll repeat it right now. Thank you very much for the great review. Me and Nick and all our team, we're happy that you enjoyed the movie, right, Nick?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. Honestly, we hope that as many people as possible can see the movie and enjoy it. It was a passion project. Something that we really enjoyed. We had such a fun time putting it together. And, it's one thing to do a Western. It's another thing to do a Western that has such a unique premise, and to bring the Eastern culture together with Western culture and, at a period of time of, over 100 years ago. It was really fun. And, we're happy that we're getting it out there, happy that you enjoyed it, and hopefully your fans will enjoy it as well.
That's awesome. So my first question is, I know that the Rio Bravo films, they mentioned it was based on the life of John Basil Turchin and Ivan Turchinsky. What led to bringing this story of the sumo delegation coming to the U.S.? Because believe it or not, before this, I never even heard of this thing happening. So I like the fact that this is like U.S. history that seems to be overlooked, but I feel like it was important. So I'm glad that the story. But what brought that on?
Thank you. Thank you for asking that. And thank you for mentioning Rio Bravo franchise, because, last time I was in your show with Joe Cornet, who directed both Rio Bravo movies, and he directed The Wide West, obviously. And John Basil Turchin's story was fascinating for me because I am from Russia, and, I became an American citizen, and I'm a proud American citizen. But as you know, I continue to work on, great movies, and I try to inspire people from all around the world. And Nick is from Canada, right? I am from Russia. Our co-stars in Wide West, Ichi and Hiroki, they're from Japan. So it's just, we have people from all around the world in our projects. But going back to the Wide West, actually, you probably heard about that story. You just don't really know, because if you remember very old but great movie Red Sun with Charles Bronson and Toshiro Mifune and Alain Delon and Ursula Andress, those movies actually loosely was based on the same historical fact. Japan delegation was going to meet the president, and of course in Red Sun they used samurais instead of sumo wrestlers. But in real life, they had sumo wrestlers in 1907. And my friend Andrew Freund, who I know for 25 years, he's the president of U.S. Sumo Association, and he's a huge fan of sumo. I'm a huge fan of bodybuilding. He's a huge fan of sumo. So I remember when we started to talk about that movie in the beginning of 2024, Red Sun. He watched it, I watched it, and I just asked him, Andrew, I know you guys because he represents a lot of sumo wrestlers outside of Japan. And Hiroki Sumi, he just made a cameo in John Wick 4 at the time. And his guys were in Members of the Geisha and Ocean 12 and all those movies. So I asked him, Andrew, why shouldn't we create something which will allow you guys to have starring roles in the movie? And that's when he reminded me about those historical facts. And I didn't even know that Red Sun was based on a historical fact. I thought it was just a great idea, to mix those cultures. So that's how it all started. And Nick actually jumped on board right away, because originally me and Nick wanted to start in and produce together a horror movie. Because Nick just, at the time, Nick just finished and released his Project Malicious, great project, which he did. It's available on Prime Video worldwide. and that's a great thriller, right? And we wanted to do something together, maybe horror or a thriller. But when I said to Nick, like, hey, what about sumo western? Of course, he was, interested right away. He had some questions, but let me ask him. So, Nick, how did you react when I asked you to do a sumo western with me?
Well, I mean, we were, like you were saying, we were lining up to do a horror movie, which I always enjoy. I've done a few. But since I was a kid, I've always wanted to be in a Western, and I grew up in Canada. I grew up in Montreal. I've been living in Toronto for about 25 years, and I've been in LA for about the last 15. I go back and forth between Toronto and LA. So it was always a dream of mine, but the reality of something like that, I mean, even being a Canadian, but even just being here in LA, what are the odds you're going to be able to be in a Western? So when we had developed a good friendship by that point, and we were working on this other project, and then he just kind of pivoted and he said, look, I know this might sound crazy, but I have this other idea. What do you think? And I had already seen both the Rio Bravo movies, or I guess I'd seen the first one, and the second was about to come out. And I loved the first one. I thought I was just really so impressed with it. And I was like, where do I sign up? I mean, I definitely was a unique storyline, unlike anything I had seen. But he said, watch Red Sun and you'll have an idea of what I'm talking about. And when I saw that, I said, okay, I see where he's going with this. And I love the idea. Anytime there's a movie based on a real story, is always so much more interesting to me personally. Whatever, like, fact is always, crazier than fiction often, and very interesting, and I love the idea of bridging cultures and bringing, a cultural exchange. And that's really kind of what the initial idea was, coming to America and introducing sumo, which I really know nothing about either. I knew nothing about. And that was the other thing, being a filmmaker, an actor, producer. One of the things that I love about it is to learn a whole new world, and this is a world that I had never even thought I would be, a part of. So I learned about their culture. Andrew works with these guys every day. They didn't speak English, so we had to, Andrew would interpret them. I mean, we had our little, things we could say to each other to be able to communicate, but it was honestly a fascinating, amazing experience. It's always great working with Alex. He's, as you know, he's a force of nature, and when he puts his mind to something, it's going to happen. And here we are, with our movie out there for people to watch on Xumo Play now. And I mean, honestly, it's like, it's a dream come true. And to think that, it was only a little over a year ago that we were sitting down, sort of hashing out this idea, and here we are now with a final product.
Yeah, one thing I like your character, Nick, was you come off as somewhat timid when you first meet Alexander. You're intimidated by him. And
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that it's a town where guns are outlawed. I really like where it's supposed to be a Western, but yet, this is a town where firearms are outlawed because times are changing. And I like the fact, like, you get like really nervous with him, and then you end up becoming.
He got nervous. Sorry to interrupt you a little bit. He got nervous, but he still got my gun.
Yeah.
He still got my gun.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah.
And then,
well, it's interesting because, that was another thing I learned, that at that time, a lot of places were starting to try to curb all of the, outlaw behavior. And one way to do that is to have an ordinance like that where, people are, and they, you go into places in Arizona and stuff, there's still signs like that, leave your gun at the front desk kind of thing. And I think it's more for nostalgia, but the fact of the matter is that was, it just kind of put everyone on an equal playing field. And the average citizen who was a peace-loving citizen didn't have to worry that, all hell would break loose. So that was something that I felt was important within the character, to, to see that I really wanted to make this a better place, that I understood that there's things that go on in the town, the brothel and the gambling and the drinking and all that stuff. And it's a part of the economy. If we didn't have it, we probably wouldn't be able to survive. But we really want to become legitimate, and we want to make ourselves, kind of like the cities in the East that had more, they were taken more seriously and had were more established. So yeah, no, it was fun to kind of play all those different levels. And, I mean, it's not every day you see a 6'5", 6'6" guy show up, in town. And then there's two more, big sumo guys on top of it. So it's definitely, there was an intimidation factor there for sure.
Yeah, and then I love the fact that when Max meets the sumo wrestlers, they just instantly get along, because for me it was like they're like fishes out of water. They're both from lands that they never seen before, and it's like they can somehow relate to each other in that aspect. And I think that was another important factor in it that ultimately led to the friendship between all parties. And I think that was another great aspect of the film as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because like I think there's just an unspoken respect between big guys with each other. And Alex, you should speak to this, because I feel like I'm not one of those people, but I see it, when you're with a big guy and he meets like the doorman or whatever, there's an instant respect between them that, it's an understanding of whatever. I don't actually, I'd love to hear you speak to it, Alex, because that's something that I'm not familiar with.
It's interesting what you just mentioned and what Albert just said, because actually and Nick, you remember that, those moments when I met with sumo wrestlers, it was improvised. It was written differently in a script, but we just improvised instantly and shot it as it was, when we just saw each other, and I joined them. And in real life, I always had moments like that. And of course, obviously, my background is bodybuilding. And of course, when you meet bodybuilders all around the world, I mean, we're all kind of like brothers in a way. And when we compete together or just meet each other, I mean, I remember many years ago when bodybuilding was illegal in Soviet Union. I think, Albert, I told you about that in one of the interviews before the perestroika, right? So, but we still train. We still had some pirated posters of Arnold Schwarzenegger. So when we saw each other on a bus or on a subway, guys with muscles, instantly we liked each other because we were doing something, something same in our lives. And that's how we actually played it in a movie. And let me again compliment Hiroki Sumi and Ichi, both of them. And by the way, Ichi, right after our movie, Ichi made his debut in studio movies, and he was with Anna de Armas in Ballerina. He spent 3 weeks with her shooting in Europe right after we finished their part of shooting at Wild West. But let me also compliment director, of course, Joe Cornet, because for him it wasn't easy, because they didn't speak English, much of English. Andrew helped a lot with translation and everything. But can you imagine, poor Joe? I mean, he was making now westerns with bodybuilders, and on top of it, now he has sumo wrestlers in his western. I mean, come on, poor guy. But he did an amazing job. And let me also compliment my beautiful girlfriend, Tatiana Neva, who you also see on those posters behind you, Albert, because she was amazing, and she made sure all her wardrobe was amazing. Of course, we had a great team behind it, but she was also very involved, and of course, she did some action scenes, and she always supported everyone.
Oh, yeah.
So the great thing is, and we spoke about it, and, for all your geeks out there, if you have a team, if you have a dream and you have a team, you always have great chances to succeed.
Exactly. And speaking of Tatiana, you said it yourself, she was great in this movie. And,
Thank you.
and the way she I like the fact that she hit her accent. Like you couldn't even tell that she's also, you know, because I heard her in one other movie and she, you know, her accent came over here. She did a really good job of pulling an American accent off. And
Thank
in this
you.
role, and the fact that she does a lot of, you know, she did some action herself. I was like, as I was watching, I'm like, oh man, I could see her leading a action film down the road, like herself, just playing an awesome.
And
I think she's done it, but I haven't seen it yet. But I would love to see more of that because she's got that skill set and all that too. So I gotta compliment her on that as well.
thank you very much. And soon, trust me, soon you will see an action movie like that. Let me tease you a little bit. Yes, but probably she will talk to you herself and tell you everything. But thank you for your compliments. Thank you.
Now, this movie also had a rare occasion. I've never seen Joe ever play a bad guy. This is the first time I've seen him play a villain, but the way he presented playing the villain, it wasn't your typical outlaw type thing where he's just really nasty and all that. You know, it's like, yeah, he's out there to avenge his brother, but it seems like he's got something else on his mind too. Like he seems more calm and collected than most of these Western outlaw villains you see, because usually a lot of them are over the top and you know, but he does it so well. Because I've seen him, you know, I've always seen him play Western heroes. Now here he is the first time playing a bad guy. That must have been crazy to see him go that 180.
Probably for you was crazy to see in a trailer when we shoot at each other. Me and him were shooting at each other, right? And so many people, didn't understand. I mean, they expected us to make another Rio Bravo movie, and now we're shooting at each other. They were making fun of it. But talking about him being a good villain, I think Nick can add to that because Nick had most of the scenes with Joy, and I think they had a great chemistry. And those intimidation that you just mentioned before when you were talking about Nick's character meeting me, intimidation and the way his character, Nick's character, became a hero after that. Of course, he's afraid first, but later he's getting his shotgun and all that. I think Nick can talk a little bit more about that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was great working with Joe. He was like such a, with a bit of a smile on his face, which to me is, and like you said, he had other, he had motives with the woman and with, whatever, starting over a whole new life. So he had a lot of layers to his character, and I sensed his at certain points, he had certain, doubts about himself, and you could just feel it within the character. And I really enjoyed it. And I had, I have nothing but great praise for Joe, both as a director and as an actor. It was really fun, those scenes. We especially the scene where he confronts me. We really worked on that. We kind of hashed out different things and how we could make it work. And a lot of that stuff happened organically at the time with the guy punching me, and so he was just sort of using the other guy. He doesn't need to do anything himself, and so yeah, I very much enjoyed working with him.
But Nick, can you add a little bit and tell Albert who you had as an inspiration for your character? I think Albert will appreciate it.
So the first thought that came to my mind when I read the script and I was considering doing that character was Gary Cooper in High Noon. And I actually asked the costume designer if she could basically give me the same. So if you look at my character and you look at his character there, it's basically the same thing.
I see it now. I was like, wait a minute. I see it. I'm like, wait a minute. Why does this look familiar?
Yeah. So even the like, if you can see the picture behind you there. I've got like the pocket watch. I asked specifically for a pocket watch, and I wanted it to be hanging like he had. The only thing that's different is I'm not the sheriff, so I don't have a sheriff's badge like he does. But that character really spoke to me. The idea that a regular person has to kind of like rise to the occasion and needs help. And I don't get it initially. I'm not getting help from Max, and I'm not getting help from the sumo guys. I'm not getting help from I don't want to give too much of the story, but
you're basically on your own as a lot. Like
I'm trying to.
That's what right. Like.
And I'm the judge of the town. I'm not the actual sheriff. Although in my backstory, create, I decided that I was at one time. So it's something that I was familiar with, but it was never my comfort zone. I was more about law and order in terms of, as a judge. Eventually I would have become mayor. I had, aspirations, let's say. But I was a peacemaker. I wasn't a fighter. But when it came to my town, I would do anything to fight for it. And obviously you see that in the movie, but I liked the idea that it didn't come easily to me. I think that's where average people can relate to a character, because that's, I think, how most people are, right? They don't want to fight, but when the right, when your family or your land or whatever, your town is in peril, and you will stand up even though you don't want to and you're afraid. I think that makes a really complex, interesting character. And it's kind of like Bruce Willis in Die Hard. He's just like this kind of like regular dude, and you really connect to that, right? You really connect to someone like that because you're like, oh, that's probably me. I'm not the Terminator. I'm not just like boom, 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 boom. I'm the guy that's kind of like, oh fuck, I don't even know how to shoot this thing properly or whatever. So yeah, that character really was something that I based him on and kind of had within my, within the structure of that, of building that character.
Yeah, another scene that really got to me was the sumo scene where they finally had the sumo battle inside at the town, because for me it felt like people who didn't know sumo is, they're getting a lesson right up front about how this whole thing works. And I gotta give kudos to Kaz Kobayashi as Taka, as like kind of like the narrator, like teaching everyone what sumo is all about, and even the Japanese culture, because of course we got to see Kaz in action as a samurai, like in some sort of way as a samurai in that last huge battle sequence, which was brilliant, by the way. The whole action setup is awesome. And Alex, I have to laugh at you because you were coming out like the Terminator once you.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I go, oh my god, I go, there he is. I go, he might as well just be Arnold Schwarzenegger right here with the cigar and the glasses.
Oh yeah.
That was I was laughing, but I was rooting. That was wonderfully done.
Thank you. But I think you also appreciated. Yeah, please, Nick, go on.
I was just going to say it's fun to see the juxtaposition of his character and my character, but they're together and they're doing this. It was something that we had imagined, and to see it actually come to life and come across as real, like that it works, was really fun.
And it was also fun for me to have that arc, kind of, because Albert, my movies. I always play the guys who, you don't even have to ask them to protect you. They're right there to protect you, to save the day, save everyone. And here, he's different guy. Yeah, he's big. He gave up his gun to the judge, whatever. But he's in town just to play, maybe to maybe fall in love with beautiful woman, or play cards, get some whiskey, and get some fun. He's not here to shoot anyone or to get into the fights, but when actually he had to, it's a different story. But later, and it's funny because Nick's character, he had to talk to me twice, and after the first time, and I know so even some journalists, when they watched the movie, and some members of the audience, because we just had a big screening at the Japan Foundation Los Angeles a couple of days ago. Hundreds of people were attending, and they all loved the movie. And of course, most of them were invited by Japan Foundation, and Hiroki and Ichi were there, but also other people who we invited. It wasn't a premiere; it was a special screening of the film, and. They appreciated action. They appreciated the story and ambitious project we had. But also, a couple of people asked me. They asked me, and actually Joe later, because Joe, he's a bad guy, but he got away with the money, right? So one lady asked him, "How come you got away with the money?" And other person asked me later at the at the little party we were having, and he asked me like, "Hey, it looks like you're not that good in this movie. And I said, you know what? In the end of the day, I'm good. In the end of the day, I mean, forget about $500 they promised me or whatever. Yeah, I just change into another jacket. I just put my old-fashioned glasses and a cigar. Yeah, and I started to kill all the bad guys. So I just hope, Albert, that you enjoyed not the action, but also those little, little acting I was doing before,
Yeah.
before and after,
Oh,
because
yeah,
I
of
was
course.
trying to create a little different character compared to
Yeah,
Turchin or
and
others.
I like the fact that you have these, like, your characters, even in the Rio Bravo films, you got these backstories that define who you are, who the character is. And, I
Yeah.
love the fact that you did something different in terms of this movie. Like, as a
Thank
guy
you.
who doesn't want, he just wants to
Yeah.
go there and, gamble, make some money and, just live a normal life. But, and then you're pretty much not forced, but you were asked to join
Yeah.
Nick's character in this battle to protect the town. And then it's like you ended up, just like the judge, you ended up falling in love with the town. So you're like, oh, you know what? I'm going to do it. Even though you had to leave at the end, but I have a feeling that you would come back. You were going to go back to that town eventually. That's what I'm predicting. Like, yeah, you're going to go away for a while, but somehow you're going to make your way back to that town once everything's all
I
done.
will. I will. And let me also compliment our president, Theodore Roosevelt, because you're absolutely right when you complimented Kobayashi, who played Taka amazingly. So thanks to him, we still got a samurai in the movie. But Lee Dawson, my friend Lee Dawson, who played the mayor in Gunfight at Rio Bravo, he played Theodore Roosevelt here, and he completely changed for the role because he looked like Roosevelt, right?
Yeah.
For you, Albert, did he?
Yeah, oh my God, he was a dead ringer. I could have sworn I was actually looking at Roosevelt watching his scenes. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah,
And
it's very
Exactly,
well
and
done.
that's what I said in the screening. So in first movie they didn't meet with Roosevelt yet. So yes, there should be more movies. And right now it's exclusively on NBC Universal's Xumo Play.
yeah,
In the end of summer, there we will be on VOD, on Prime Video, and Apple TV, and hopefully limited theaters. But right now, it's exclusively on Xumo. And as you know, it's very important not just to make the movie, but make sure your movie is released, your movie is known, and you're ready for another one. So again, thank you and thank your audience and all those geeks, who supporting my films, who supporting independent films. It's not getting easier, but it's still huge fun, and it's just one adventure after another.
it is. And yeah, this is why I love indie films. And I also love the fact that we get the little history lesson at the end, like we did with the Rio Bravo films. And
Thank you.
I never knew Teddy Roosevelt was into martial arts. That's what really
Exactly.
surprised me. I did
He
not
was.
know until this movie. I'm like, wow. Like, that is amazing to hear. Like, it surprised
Yeah.
me. I'm like I mentioned earlier, this is like U.S. history that's overlooked. Like, not many people know about it, but I feel like they need to know about it, and that's why I'm glad like these type of movies come out. Though your movies, because you're giving us a history lesson, even though the movies are obviously fictional but they're based on the history, and then
Yeah.
getting the history lesson itself at the end is just mind blowing.
I'm so glad you're appreciating it because I should compliment Andrew on this and his team. And again, I just hope that this movie will be also a little, not just entertainment, hopefully good entertainment, but also, give some interesting ideas to the audience and just be a little educational, if you want. And by the way, when we were talking about Gary Cooper and High Noon, as you know, actually High Noon was the reason for John Wayne to create Rio Bravo because he was so upset watching that kind of sheriff. He decided to shoot Rio Bravo with like a real sheriff, tough guy, and all of that. And as you know, Rio Bravo was an inspiration for our Rio Bravo, hopefully trilogy uh, with Joe and our other team. So you never know how it will connect. But the most importantly, you just have to push. You just have to do it, right? And there's a lot of people out there, and they just dream about making movies. I hope Nick and me and all our team and you, Albert, we real proof, living proof that you can get your dream. You got your podcast, you got your great website, you got your awards and everything. Thank you again for making me Hall of Famer. Thank you again for that, my friend.
And as you
Thank you.
know, and as you know, next month is 10 years to the day I start.
10 years.
10 years.
Can you imagine? 10 years.
Oh, wow.
10 years. And it's another example for everyone who just dream about having their podcast or site or media. They should look at you, Albert, and just push for their dreams. And for others who they want to be in movies, they don't know how, they doubt in themselves, whatever. They should look at Nick. They should look at me and just push themselves, because it's all doable. Not easy, but doable, and huge fun. Most important, right, Nick?
Yep.
Huge fun.
Oh, it's amazing. It's you do it because you love it, and you also obviously, like Alex was saying, you want it to be completed, and you want it to get out to an audience, and then you want the audience to be aware of it. So there's many layers to it. You have to have a script, and then you have to have some money so that you can shoot it, and some people that are you like to work with, and then you have to edit it and put everything together so that you've got a final product, and then you've got have to find a distributor, and then that distributor has to be on board to sell it, and you have to sell it yourself. And Alex is a master at selling, and at advertising and promoting his projects, and it's something that I'm learning a lot from him. I've mostly, my background has been acting, and so to see that, it's just so important, so that people who would love to see this even know it exists, because they will support it. So it's just a matter of getting it out there. And so for me, it's like there's just no question that that's important, but also the process is really fun. We always have a good time. Even when we're just preparing and meeting, we meet to discuss ideas and work on the script, or the plan of action that we have, scheduling, everything like that. It's always with a good attitude and fun, and the sets are always great. Everybody's always, it just feels like a really nice community, especially shooting Western. You're actually on a location that, you're not in a studio. It's like, if you can't kind of buy into that while you're living out there, you're in the wrong business, because it's just, it was so much fun. I love being there, working with all those great people. So yeah, if there's one thing I could tell people, just like Alex was saying, anytime anyone asks me, like, hey, what would you recommend to someone? I'd say, create your own stuff, because then you can choose the projects you want to do and play the characters you want to play, and don't wait for somebody else to decide that you are worthy of being, whatever. Just do it yourself, and like you've done, and like Alex has done, like I've done. To me, that's the most important thing. We're talented. We know we have something to offer, and to me, the greatest talent is actually being able to just put it together and make it happen. And that just takes hard work, persistence, and just a good attitude, and that you enjoy the ride.
Exactly. So I like to ask this question, Alex. The next Rio Bravo's chapters, what's going on with those? I know because I know there was a couple mentioned. There was Sheriff Kelly's story, and then Last Heroes at Rio Bravo. What's the status on those two films?
Let me tell you honestly that Last Heroes of Rio Bravo will be third official Rio Bravo movie. I hope not the last one. But the third one. And I hope that we'll start this year. We'll start very soon. And I also hope that Nick will join us in this film. And of course, we'll update you. And I just realized when we were talking, all of us, during that half an hour, that huge thing we'll have in common, all three of us. And actually, it's interesting because we're right here on WorldFilmGeek. We all film geeks, Albert. Me and you, we know for a long time that we're both huge geeks, right? But we all film geeks. And I think, again, for all your audience out there, they shouldn't be shy to call themselves film geeks, or they shouldn't be
No.
afraid to be film geeks. Because remember, even during our conversations, you mentioned so many movies, other movies. I mentioned so many movies. So film characters. Nick mentioned so many movies and characters, other film characters. You have to be film geek. It's a great thing to be film geek. Yeah. So
It's good to be a geek nowadays.
exactly,
Right.
Back
exactly.
it ain't like the
Geek
old
is
days
in.
anymore.
Yeah.
I'm a geek and proud of it.
Geek is in.
Same
Now,
here.
yes.
That's exactly what's going on. So, yep, I totally agree with that. I am definitely, like I said, I've been doing this it's going to be 10 years. And I got to say, out of all the writing, I've written about films for over 25 years, but these last 10 years have been the best ever, hands down, in my opinion.
Can you please remind me, where are you located, Albert?
I'm in Florida.
You're in Florida.
Yeah, I'm by Orlando, but I'm originally from New York. I was born and raised in New York.
Uh-huh.
But I've been here for almost 2 decades now, but I've been down here.
Nice.
One day we should meet in person.
Yeah.
On the set of one of our films, or in Florida. I think on the set you will enjoy meeting on the set much more. Let's try and let's think about that, because you supporting my movies for so long. I think it's time. It's time for us to do some special show, World Film Geek show from the set of one of the Geeks movies, right?
There
That's
we
what
go.
we should do one day.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're gonna definitely make that happen. Definitely.
Yes.
Well, everyone, The Wide West is exclusively now in Xumo Play. Definitely check out this movie. If you love Westerns, you love sumo wrestling, or you like the Eastern Westerns, this is one you definitely have to check out. Alex, Nick, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about it today.
Albert, thank you very much. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. It was an absolute pleasure.
All right. Well, everyone, you stay awesome as always.
Thank you.
Cheers.